For context, in 2012, the MCU wasn't the cultural juggernaut it is today. Marvel Studios at this point was teetering on bankruptcy for the past 4 to 5 years, with each movie at this point being a massive gamble in whether it would help maintain the studio and save it from bankruptcy, and there was no bigger gamble at this point than the Avengers. As hard as it may be to believe today, Marvel Studios had no idea whether the Avengers would be successful or not, and because of this, they didn't have any future plans in place past this film. That's actually one of the main reasons we do see the Infinity Gauntlet in the first Thor movie in Odin's chamber with all of the stones assembled. The filmmakers at the time just decided to throw any references they wanted to, because they had no idea if they'd ever be able to set up and pay off anything past the first Avengers film, with one of the references being Thanos himself, who literally only appeared in the first Avengers movie because Joss Whedon likes the character. There were no plans for Thanos or the Infinity Saga or anything. With this appearance kind of just being an afterthought on Marvel's part, they just decided to, take a comic design, get a stand-in actor, put some makeup on him, throw him in there, maybe reference his comic relationship with Death, and then we'll worry about it later. But every time I do think back to the first Avengers film, I do think back to this first Thanos appearance. Of course, this actor was never going to be Thanos, he was just a stand-in for the character. But looking back on this first Thanos made me wonder, what if they kept the actor, they kept the design? I doubt they would have kept the practical part, but what if they just kept everything else? What if Thanos looked like this throughout the entire MCU, with the comic accurate armor, the piercing blue eyes and all? After thinking this, I decided to dig up a bunch of set photos, headshots, on-set photos, just any images I could find of this rendition of Thanos, and I did my best to compose him onto some footage from Infinity War and maybe Endgame. This made their differences in design way more apparent. You can see in this first rendition of Thanos, they went way more for an intimidating, more comic accurate look. You can see that with the piercing blue eyes, the very pronounced brow bones, the very pronounced facial bones. It has a very piercing and intimidating look to him, whereas in Infinity War, they made a very conscious effort to make him look a lot more human, with a lot more humanoid features to his appearance, so that with scenes like the Vormir scene, he would be able to portray emotions that were much more readable than what this Thanos would have been able to pull off, especially if they did keep it practical and kept with the layers and layers of makeup that they had to put on him to make him look like this. Although I think this design would have lacked in the conveying more complex emotions standpoint, if they went for a more intimidating approach, this design could have been really effective. The pronounced bone structure casts a shadow that makes his eyes less visible. It's very effective if they wanted to make him an incredibly scary, emotionless, sort of inhuman type figure. And I mean inhuman to the point where he doesn't feel many emotions or convey many emotions like the Thanos in the actual film, who's a very emotionally, diverse character. But I feel like if they went with this design, they would have come up with a very more emotionally stunted or emotionally limited Thanos. But actually editing these videos was actually really fun. I started off by taking, again, all the images I could find on this Thanos, taking it into Photoshop and with screenshots from the film, slowly editing it and detailing it to just about match the shots from the film. And then I take those PNGs into After Effects, and then obviously you just layer it over it, move every frame along with the camera, warp the mesh to give the illusion of a 3D character. And looking at these shots, I feel in another world, if they kept this Thanos design, if they kept the actor as Thanos, then we could have gotten a very interesting and different portrayal of the character, probably a very different portrayal from Thanos that we got. And I think if they went for this probably more emotionless, sort of vindictive type of Thanos, he may not have had the same impact as he did with both Infinity War and Endgame. Overall, this was a really fun 2-day experiment to see what Thanos could have looked like if they kept his design from 2012. I don't think it would have made too much of a difference, since they probably would have went with motion capture anyway, and since the actor again was just a stand-in, he was never going to be Thanos if they were going to take it into the future. However, it's always fun to imagine a what if.